We're live. Welcome back to Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. This is your host, Chad Everett Broshears. This is actually the first time going live with IGTV, so we'll see how this works out. But I am on my other platforms as well. So with that, let's get into it. This is actually one that's really, I think that we're struggling right now as a people to overcome some of these self-worth issues. We have a lot of people that are pushing us out there that say, "Oh, you need to be, you need to know your worth, self-worth, and all of this stuff." And we do seem to find kind of a defense mechanism that comes into play that separates us from dealing with things that may not necessarily go the route we wanted to go in. So. You get people that step in, they coddle you, do all kinds of stuff. And you may do this to other people as well, but what are some of the benefits and challenges to this? And there's benefits can be somebody feels like they care and they're there with you. Challenges to this can be they're enabling you or distracting you from developing yourself and or disabling you. Depends on the degree. So I'm finding this happens pretty often, and it seems that it's infected us in a lot of different places. Dealing with the real world and actually having situations not play out in the favor that we want is something that we should look forward to a degree when it comes to learning and developing. At how many times have you come across people that are so uncomfortable with not being right or not looking good or struggling to get through something that they would rather hide it as if it's something that's shameful and should be something that you're ashamed of? So, with that being said, that would be somebody who, so on one side of the spectrum, you'll have somebody who's drunk on self-worth. These are the people that seem to be in the midst of an argument before you even get there. I am not going to deal with this. I am not going to do that. Or, you better believe they gave me this much money. Or, of course they said that about me. It's like the narcissistic display of behaviors. That can be drunk on self-worth. You think you're worth more than your ability to produce something. To me, that's not uncommon. Actually, it seems like we have a reward sequence set up to help that become more prevalent in our society. Being drunk on self-worth it can be highly detrimental for that reason. It also makes you. It convinces people you are somebody who you actually aren't, but you're so deeply ingrained in the idea of who you are that you're not even being yourself. You're being the idea. It's a great distinction to go over here after I get the other side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is lacking self-worth. And there's a lot of things that you can do that kind of catch yourself in lacking self-worth. Agreeing too quickly to things to help support others in a way that gives you some sort of value. Lacking self-worth can get you to take on a lot of tasks that aren't even associated with your benefit, even in the sense that the other person, the benefit you may get out of it, the other person may just like you, and that's it. So there's that variable that comes in. There's other things too that come into play. When it comes lacking self-worth, you may do things that actually are kind of degrading to you at a truer, deeper level, and you're unwilling to share that, or you're willing to share the degrading behavior, but you're unwilling to share the fact that it actually makes you feel like less of a person. This could be something that, somebody's convinced you to do something that would be funny. Do it for the camera. This is something commonly you find, people that are of a lower level of self-value or self-worth are more susceptible to listening to crowd ideas or encouragement. And somebody who's also drunk on self-worth also become almost as easily, if not then arguably as easily manipulated as that individual that is lacking self-worth. If somebody's drunk on their self-worth, pattern assess wherever their demonstration of their values are, and you lead them in with ideas that, you do this, you're really going to be cooler. I can't believe that you're just so amazing, and I bet you could do that. And next thing you know, they've been tricked into doing something that somebody else wanted. It's not that doing something that somebody else wanted is always the negative or a bad thing. We are creatures that live in a community with each other, and by our evolutionary values, we are intended to be social creatures. And with that, we look for hierarchy, we look for commonality, we look for complementary behaviors and attributes, and also areas that are weaknesses that you find a weakness in somebody else, you could facilitate your strength to help them be successful as they do in like return to you. So there's all kinds of ways of looking at this. It's also beneficial, and overall for this video's intention is just to create an insight that may be more beneficial for you, to look at it and say, you know what, I'm actually a little bit over the limit here on my self-worth. I might actually be, operating while intoxicated on my Facebook or my social media platforms, operating social media while drunk on self-worth. That's not always a great thing, but I'm not really to say like there's, you know what, let me do this. Let me say this, and then we'll get to another distinction I want to talk about. There is arguably no right way to live your life. There are social standards that if you live your life in a certain way, you may lose your freedoms. But overall, there really is not a right way to live your life by somebody else's dictation, like somebody else dictating to you what you should do in order to be happy or to feel fulfilled. There's really not a right way. But every one of us are practicing life. The beautiful thing about practicing life is that you can get it wrong, but you can learn from it and then get it right or get it closer. When I'm working with any of my clients, whether it's at the facility that I work in or if it's online or if it's one of the other means that I work with individuals, I will not give the polarized yes or no. We'll do the yes or no's. I do that. The wrongs or rights when it comes to goals without understanding their goal first. Like, was that right that I did? That thing that I just did, was that good? Was that bad? Well, giving advice in a scenario like that, if you don't understand what their outcome is that they're looking for, you could very well give them very, very, very bad advice or insight, and give them the confidence to facilitate on that advice you gave them, only to create more problems for them. When you have advice, you come up with your own ideas about dealing with something that also comes from its genesis is coming from you. It deals with your world desires. It deals with your struggles, your frustrations, your failures, your wins. It comes from that place of your own necessity, the utility of that thing that you were trying to accomplish and how that would play a role into your future. There's a lot of things that comes from the genesis of your genesis. But when you give somebody else advice, that very well may be mix-matched to their own genesis, their own needs, their own outcomes. It's not their genesis, not to use that word too much, it's just I haven't used it much in this context with a lot of people. So, it's an interesting thing about the way that we can live our life. We can live our life in a way that makes other people's lives better without them taking from us anything that we're unwilling to give. I could go out and do something that would be considered funny. I had to give other opportunities up in order to be funny. I could have sat quietly. I could have thought about something else. I could have interacted with the person that I was with. I could have done a lot of different things to get, to find satisfaction in the moment. But if I decided to demonstrate something that I thought would get some degree of joy and humor out of it, there's a really good chance that I did it for the reward of either you liking me or the reward of validating that I can be humorous. We do this often. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just to understand it. If you understand these things, you can start understanding other people's motives enough that you can cohabitate. Most of the disruptions that I've ever experienced in life, as well as my clients, most of the disruptions come from a disconnect of values or a miscommunication. They assessed something and they thought to themselves that it meant something else. Yeah. So, I'll put that darn pen away. Apparently, IGTV makes me a little anytime you change platforms, doing something like this, from my experience, has been I'm talking to a new audience, although a great deal of people that are going to watch me through my IG account is going to also appreciate me from my Facebook and what I've put out through Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia on YouTube, or Chat with Chad on YouTube through Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. My main goal is always just to get people to think. I'm not telling you I'm right. I can't tell you. If you go back to what I said earlier about when you ask for advice, if I don't understand your goals, I can't tell you what's right or wrong, other than whatever our societal goals are. And our societal goals are: don't commit crime, abide by the rules, abide by the laws, don't kill people, don't harm people. That's our societal laws. And what we can say is right or wrong. What you do today may take your freedom tomorrow. And some of that stuff isn't punishable by law, but it could be relationship. And what you did today may be a loss of freedom tomorrow. Could be with your partner, could be with a friend, whatever it is, whatever that relationship is to you. Could be going to the gas station, and interacting with the gas station attendant. What you do today can reduce your abilities and freedoms tomorrow. If you go in there and you're a complete jerk to that person, you may be denied service the following day. And it does happen. It happens all the time. Look on YouTube. You can catch all kinds of videos on it. So the goal is this: recognize where you currently are. A lot of times when I see people that are drunk on their self-worth, those are individuals that I also look for how close are they to accomplishing their goals, and are they faking it to try to make it? I'm not going to take anything away from them if that's the case, because they very well may be lacking a specific set of skills in order to become accomplished and successful in that I might actually have. Or I might know somebody who does have it, and you could argue and say that you do know somebody that does have it. Just how many degrees of separation between you and that other person? Our society seems to be more interested right now in tearing people down by the idea of being right, and not so much about understanding. We're so far from understanding right now. We're so much more encouraged to think about what side is right, and we're drunk on righteousness and self-worth. If we want to be able to break those habits and patterns and get back to unifying with other people, even if they identify in some way that is farther away from your own principles, that individual may have the skills to help you get where you want to be in life. And you, therefore, them. There's a great deal of joy that comes out of helping somebody else become successful. That sense of joy is so incredibly desirable that you have to feel it. You have to know that you played a contribution in somebody else's long-term well-being. Even if you don't, preferably you don't intend to have a return off of it necessarily, but more of the return be the fact of satisfaction. If you do it inauthentically and you do it for the purpose, I'm doing this for you, so that the quid pro quo of it, that can become pretty ugly, because then it's like, I'm only going to do this for you if you do for me. And it's like a skill set hostage negotiation. No, that's quid pro quo. Quid pro quo. Thank you for bearing with me on that. So anyway, I'm not going to belabor you too much longer. I know that I can see that I'm running out of a little bit of time here on the IGTV. From what I understand, you get more time with more subscribers, so let's start getting over there to subscribe to this channel as well. Again, also please join me on Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. I do have my my Chat with Chad segment that I do at least one interview a week with a business or thinker, business professional or thinker, to try to illuminate a little bit more insight on the game of life and or business, or both. So do catch it. I do have another recording scheduled for Saturday, and then a end of month recording with all of the individuals that I have previously recorded with in July. The 4 guests, they will be on with me, and we'll have a panel discussion on your questions that you submit, as well as questions that we have of each other. So until next time, do share this video with the person in your life you know this can help. Watch it again. Comment in the comment section. Please, thank you for your time. Again, it's Chad Everett Brochures. I'm the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Until next time, enjoy.